Michael Chandler continues to embarrass and humiliate himself in every single interview that he does. And we're going to take a look at this interview he did with MMA Farting, aka MMA Fighting, where he hilariously copes about losing the Conor McGregor fight. But on top of all that, he's just a massive hypocrite because of some of the stuff that he's saying on Twitter. And the inspiration for this video was a couple of the things that he said on Twitter that we're going to check out first. Because Chandler is now regurgitating some of the same talking points that fans were telling him over the course of the last 2 years as reasons for why he's moving on. You have to see it and you have to hear it to even believe it. Now, we're going to start off by looking at a tweet from Michael Chandler's Twitter where somebody tweeted to him, Chris Damage, and said, "So nobody going to talk about how," and tags Conor McGregor, "ducked Michael Chandler, ? Just going to sweep that under the rug." And Michael Chandler should have just kept his mouth shut. Okay? He had the audacity to say, "Water under the bridge. I knew all along it was a long shot. I took time to calibrate and plan this Chandler 2.0 season." Does that grind anyone else's gears? Let me know down in the comments. I knew all along it was a long shot. I have hours of video footage of him guaranteeing fans that he's fighting Conor McGregor next. Whether it's September of 2023, whether it's December of 2023, whether it's UFC 300, whether it's UFC 303, which I don't really blame him that much for that one. Whether it's the Sphere, teasing the Sphere, whether it's teasing December 2024, I knew all along it was a long shot. Meanwhile, he's talking about in January of 2024, he's getting ready to leave his family for a hypothetical fight that never happened. Mythical fight. And I was going to leave it alone. I wasn't going to make any. Chandler moved on. That was what I was critiquing him on before. And I wasn't even, when I saw this tweet here, I wanted to make another video on him because I knew he did a delusional interview, but I didn't feel like watching it and hear him say, pushing the rock up the hill and one dude on my mind and see you at the top and all that, get your candy ass back in the cage. I didn't want to see all that. But the interview we're going to look at in a second was really inspired with him now calling out Arman Tsarukyan for saying he's going to wait for a title fight with Islam Makhachev. Now, I want to start off by looking at this. This is from August, okay? This is not the tweet that I'm referencing. He said, "Never mind, guys. I think it's time to admit the fight is off." He's still in stage 2 of 7, basically saying Conor McGregor fight is off, okay? Which everyone had been saying for a while. And now he's finally booked to fight Charles Oliveira. Arman quotes it and says, "Does it mean we can finally watch you lose 4 exciting fights now?" And obviously, Chandler took offense to that. So now Chandler has to go out of his way to talk crap to Arman Tsarukyan on Twitter. Now, this is recent, okay? This is from September 24th. And I haven't seen this Arman interview, but basically this is an Arman interview where he says, "It will take place early next year. I don't care when this fight happens. Even if it's in a year, I'll keep working." Chandler takes that and says, "Wait a second," tags Arman. "You said you'd wait another year? That would put you out 17 months. You'd wait 17 months for a fight? Pot, meat, kettle." First off, this is just completely ridiculous. Arman Tsarukyan fought in April, okay? He fought at UFC 300. He defeated Charles Oliveira. He is guaranteed a title shot against Islam Makhachev, which will happen at the latest February. And he's even said in the past, he'll be willing to fight for an interim belt if Islam is going to be out for a long period of time. So to take this supposed interview, which again, I haven't heard it, I'm assuming this is a translation, and for Chandler to somehow critique him for potentially sitting out 17 months in a hypothetical situation for a guaranteed title shot against Islam is completely and utterly ridiculous. So first off, Arman, even if he was to wait 17 months, Chandler waited 2 years. Okay, Chandler waited 24 months, even though he tries to play revisionist history and, 3 weeks, in 3 weeks, it'll be 60 days, and in 60 days, it'll be 90 days, and in 90 days, it'll be 3 days, and all this, word salads. If Arman was to wait 17 months, he's waiting for a guaranteed title shot against Islam Makhachev. I still wouldn't advise it. I don't think Arman would even do it. Okay? He's going off one, picture with some words over top of it. That's what Chandler's doing. But also, Arman's not hanging around teasing fans about a fight that's not going to happen against a guy who's out snorting coke and drinking alcohol regularly on social media. And then Arman's not sniffing his asshole in the meanwhile as well. So Chandler sniffed Conor's asshole for 2 years, praying that Conor may finally give him some attention. Also, Chandler could fight him while getting no pay-per-view points. Okay? And if Chandler won, it wasn't going to do that much for his career because everyone was going to say Conor's washed up, broken leg, all that good stuff, 40 years old. And he sat out for 2 years in the back end of his career. So these situations aren't even comparable, even though in this interview, Chandler tries to, compare himself to other fighters. And one of the lines that he says in this interview, and we're going to get to it in a second, is one of the most delusional lines I've ever heard. He starts critiquing other fighters for hypothetical situations where they would sit out longer than him waiting for Conor. Yes, you heard that correctly. He's saying other fighters would have waited longer than he waited for Conor McGregor. And he uses that to justify himself waiting for Conor McGregor. Delusional. But we have a bunch of clips to look at. Let's just start off with this first clip where he talks about, I had so many assurances from the UFC, that's why I waited for Conor. Just utter delusion.
Yeah, so obviously I was focused on Conor the entire time. I had enough reassurances behind the scenes.
How did those assurances work out for Michael Chandler? Somebody let me know. How did they work out for him while all the fans were telling him it wasn't going to happen?
That holding on to the Conor fight, getting the fight booked, getting all the way down to 2 weeks before the fight. And as soon as the fight got, canceled, I packed everything up. I left Florida. I was, just disheveled because, you put all the work in and, it's a tough spot to be. I was away from my family for 10 weeks.
When I first heard that, I thought he was going to say 10 months because he said in an interview in January of 2024 that he was getting ready to leave his family soon.
And then got home, licked my wounds for a day or so, continued to talk to the UFC.
Okay, there you go. He's talking to the UFC. I want to jump ahead now because this next clip is where it really starts to go off the rails. He literally starts criticizing other fighters for what they would have done hypothetically if they were in the same situation as him. He's like, I may have waited 2 years, but other fighters would have waited longer than I would have. Literally, Michael Chandler could tell you if Conor McGregor had corn for dinner last night. And this guy's making hypothetical situations, fantasy situations, so he can be critical of other fighters waiting for Conor McGregor, even though nobody else would have done with what Michael Chandler did. Waste his career, the tail end of his career, waiting for a guy who's snorting coke and drinking alcohol and cheating on his wife every single day, sometimes in public restrooms. Listen to this.
Immediately when it was, started sounding like it wasn't going to be December, I was like, hey, boys, I'm going to go bet on myself. I'm going to roll the dice. And it's really funny.
Here he goes. By the way, bet on himself. I've already covered this previously. What other option did he have but other than to move on? No other option.
1,000 fighters sit here across from you and talk to you doing interviews, and all of them who have said that I, was Conor's little whipping boy, or I was waiting too long, or I was waiting.
He was Conor's little whipping boy. Conor was whipping him up. Chandler would have loved to run into Conor at NBA Finals public restroom.
They see my career. Every single one of them would have held on to this Conor fight, even though they say publicly that they wouldn't. Every single one of those guys wants this fight. But at this point, I've got a job to do.
Every single other fighter would have held on to this Conor fight. And he's saying they would have not moved on like he's moving on to Oliveira. That's what he's saying here. It's even clearer if you watch the entire interview. By the way, I encourage you to check out the full interview, which I will link down in the description. Beware, because it's Damon Martin's interview. Audio is about as good as Brett Okamoto's camera quality. Okay? If you need help with the audio, please let me know. Every comment was trashing the audio, by the way. But yeah, every other fighter would have held on to this Conor fight. No, they wouldn't have. For 2 years, you could have fought anybody else and still fought Conor. That's what Chandler's saying now. Well, I can fight Oliveira and still fight Conor. Yeah, you could have done that for 2 years and actually made some money. But yeah, Next clip we're going to take a look at, which I find this hilarious because this is something I've been breaking down for years. He's asked, do you know the reason why you're not fighting Conor? Do you know what's going on? And basically goes on to, brown nose Conor some more, then kind of allude to him being unreliable. And it's just, it's just stupid.
No concrete answers aside from the fact that the UFC.
By the way, he goes on to just suck the UFC off and talk about what a big company they are, even though the direct question is, do you know why you're not fighting Conor? What is going on? Do you know? And what I've called over the years is Chandler's been left completely in the dark. He's like, oh, I have assurances. He has no idea what's going on other than, oh, we're working on it, Chandler. Don't call us. We'll call you. Stop blowing up my phone. That's what Dana White's telling him.
The UFC has a business to run. The UFC is by far and away the biggest combat sports promotion in the world, and they are climbing the ranks every single year, gaining ground on all of the biggest.
By the way, the question was, do you have a reason for why you didn't fight Conor McGregor? The UFC is the biggest sport ever, and it's such a big organization, and I love this organization so much. It's so great.
Sporting promotions in the entire world. They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders, to their C-suites, to the people that own the company, and to just the legacy of what the UFC is to make.
All right, get to it already. Get to it already, Chandler.
Make sure that all of us, we are who we say we are, right? And when you say, you got Conor tweeting saying he should, give me my date. I want to come back at this time. I want to fight this guy. I want to fight. I'm ready to get back in there. But then his social media shows something else. Are you a guy that can be relied upon? Are you a guy that is taking it as seriously as your opponent, right?
Does anyone find this rich coming from Chandler, who literally defended Conor's social media post? He defended Conor. He's like, Conor's trolling. He's not actually out drinking. He's not actually out partying. I've covered this extensively, as you guys may know. And now he's saying, oh, he's kind of unreliable. What drives me nuts, and people think for some reason I just hate Michael Chandler and I want to crap on Michael Chandler. Chandler was one of my favorite fighters at one point. Not anymore. But because all he did while he was being strung along was string the fans along and lie about dates and say certain things like Conor's going to 100% show up and yeah, he's trolling with some of those social media posts. And I didn't believe it for 1 second, but I'm just saying he defended Conor. And now that he's moved on, he's still defending Conor in a way, but he's also saying, well, Conor's unreliable and look at his social media. Like, bro, you're 2 years late. We've been saying this. All the fans have been saying this for so long. Now the next clip. The saga's not over, boys. He's still insisting. Conor McGregor's road back to the UFC goes through Nashville, Tennessee. See you at the top.
And obviously I saw it over the last year and a half, but I still stand firm in the notion that Conor McGregor is coming back. And when he does, his road goes through Nashville, Tennessee and Michael Chandler, and we finish The Ultimate Fighter. But I just don't, it's not going to be my next fight. I am Conor's next fight, but he is not my next fight. And I'm willing to go bet it all. I'm willing to go bet the house. I'm willing to go bet the farm. I'm willing to put all the pressure on myself.
What other option did you have? I wish somebody would ask him. You say you're willing to bet it all. What other option do you have? Wait another 2 years? Fight Conor McGregor Jr.? I mean, that's more probable at this point than fighting Conor McGregor. He keeps saying, I'm betting it all. What is he betting? He has nothing to lose at this point. He's lost it all over the last 2 years. His reputation? He should have lost his ranking. The fact that he's still ranked in the top 10 is borderline criminal. And here he is. I'm betting it all, and I will still be Conor's next fight. Yeah, right, buddy. I'd be shocked if they ever step in the cage. I'd be utterly shocked if Chandler and Conor McGregor ever stare across from each other in the cage. That would be insanity. I mean, that would be craziness. I think I have a better chance of winning a UFC title. Next clip. And I believe this is when I left one of the questions in. This audio is so bad, man. He needs help with his audio. I'd be more than happy to help him with the audio. Please just fix the audio. It's hard to listen to this.
You do believe in your heart of hearts we will see Conor again? Because there's been that question, like, as these things kept getting, but no one doubted you. No one ever doubted Michael Chandler wanted to fight. No one ever doubted.
I doubted Chandler. Not that he wanted to fight, but that he was lying about, oh, we're going to fight in September. We're going to fight in December. We're going to fight in April. We're going to fight in June. We're going to fight in September again. We're going to fight in December.
Michael Chandler was ready to fight June, July, August, September, and no one doubted you at all. But there's been this long-running question of like, well, you know, the injury, the time off.
All right. I think I messed up with my timestamp there. Somehow, some way I messed up my timestamp. But we still got to listen to some of the audio. At some point, I left some of the audio in here so you could hear the questioning. But let's jump ahead. And this is where he's asked, and I think it was that long-winded question, do you still believe Conor's going to return?
I believe he loves the sport. I believe his spirit loves the sport, but sometimes his body and his brain want other things, right? And
he's still defending this guy. Instead of saying, look, he's checked out. All he wants is relevancy. He refuses to fight me because he's scared. He's like, yeah, he's romantic about the sport. He still loves the sport.
I've never walked a mile in that man's shoes. Neither have you. So who are we to critique him? But I do believe he comes back. And when he does, I'll be waiting. And I just might have the title by then. So it could be a very interesting set of circumstances.
If that isn't a nightmare scenario, Chandler somehow getting a hold of the title and holding the title hostage so he can defend it against Conor McGregor, that'll never happen. But man, if that doesn't give me nightmares. That's the only way Chandler can save his career. He beats Oliveira. Maybe Arman is injured and steps in for Arman, fights Islam, chins Islam in January, February, then says, Conor McGregor, you want to come back and try to get your title? You know, even though it was 2016 last time Conor had a title. And then he fights Conor, making actual pay-per-view points. That's the only way Chandler can rectify this situation. That's a lot of things that have to go right. Next thing, and maybe this is where I left the audio in. Yeah, I believe this is. He's asked if he has any regrets. This delusional cope is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Before, like when we talked before you went to go film The Ultimate Fighter, we're like, oh, September, you're going to be fighting September. Like we were excited. Like, oh, it's going to finish film.
Damon Martin's audio is Brett Okamoto's video quality.
September is going to be the date. And then obviously, you know, everything else happened. So I know what you're going to say, but I want to hear your version. Do you have any regrets about these last 2 years?
By the way, the September date, he's talking about September 2023, not 2024.
You know, it's a good question, and I'm glad you brought up September. That was going to be the date originally, right? So if you go from September to April.
Watch these mental gymnastics. If you go from April to September and September to April and April to September and Christmas of 2022 to... This is craziness.
When the fight actually got announced, I was out and waiting for 7 months. Now, granted, when I step into the octagon for the next time, it's going to be 2 years since I fought, but I already had a bout agreement, already had a contract signed, already had the biggest gate, broke the gate record, was lined up against Conor. We had a fight gets pulled. So you can't really have any regrets. All you can do is make the best decision that you can with the information that you have, and the information that I had that you didn't have and the fans didn't have was the reassurances of dates being looked at and things being worked on and protocols being followed.
I'm not kidding. That may be one of the funniest things that he ever said. Let's listen to that one more time.
Can with the information that you have and the information that I had that you didn't have and the fans didn't have was the reassurances of dates being looked at and things being worked on and protocols being followed. And I enjoyed myself. I needed some time away from the sport.
Yeah. Dates being looked at, things being worked on, protocols being looked at. I don't even know if I quoted that correctly. Someone needs to leave that down in the comment. Think about that. Think about they didn't have the assurances I had for the last 2 years of my career, and I'm almost 40 years old. Okay, those protocols did you in, Chandler. And I mean, I understand that he's finally moved on, but the cope is unbelievable. And this is what I told you guys would happen. I've been saying this forever. I said, look, once Chandler finally has to move on, literally, I said this so many times recently too. He'll be like, yeah, this is what it was meant to be. All along, this is what it was meant to be. This guy's delusional. We're going to move on to another clip where it's just more cope, more talking about no regrets, more talking about gobbling up Conor as well, I think. All right, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but listen.
Take it so seriously. The sport can chew you up and gobble you up, and I think
Yeah, you've been gobbling up Conor McGregor for the last 2 years, buddy.
The first 25 months, having 6 training camps, 5 crazy fights, and all of the different things that I said earlier, it beat me up a little bit mentally, physically, and spiritually. And me.
But yet he says he wanted to fight this whole time. He says he was ready to fight this whole time. But instead he's got to, break out his trophies and said, I fought this many times in this many months. And in January, 2 weeks from January is the time that I leave my family. And then I leave my family for 6 months. And then I wait 3 more months. And then I'm almost at the fight. It's insanity.
Being pulled out of the sport has given me a new lease on life and a new love for the sport. So I don't have any regrets because this is the way it was always supposed to be, I guess, right? You can always look back and have 20/20 vision saying, I wish I would have done this, or I wish this would have worked out different.
Back me up, guys. The people who watch the channel forever, how long have I been saying, and when he finally moved on, this is what he would say. This is what he would say. This is how it was always meant to be. I knew he was never going to get his candy ass back in the cage. I had one dude on my mind, but this was always the way it was supposed to be. Yeah.
For Liddy, I'm at peace where I am. I'm 50.
All right, so he's at peace. Last clip I want to show you. Honestly, I give him a little bit of credit here. I give him a little bit of credit, but still, I think he should have fired some shots at Conor McGregor here. He takes responsibility. It's all on his shoulders, which is facts. It is all on his shoulders. He was told repetitively by everyone, including Dana White, by the way. Dana White said at a post-fight presser, yeah, I wouldn't advise Chandler to sit around and wait. What was that, like 6 months ago? I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me on that. Told by everyone to move on. Meanwhile, he's saying, I'm meeting fans at fan expos, and they're telling me, yeah, keep on waiting, keep on pushing that rock up the hill. See you at the top. At least he takes some credit here. It takes some responsibility for the absolute mismanagement of his career and the disastrous last 2 years of his career.
No, not any more than I had at the very.
By the way, he's asked, are you mad at Conor? And then he takes responsibility for himself here. So I needed to, give you that context.
Beginning, I don't blame him for anything. I really don't. The outsiders can look and say, man, he must hate Conor. Look, Conor did this to him. Conor did that to him.
He wished Conor did something to him, but he should have blamed Conor a little bit. He said, look, it's at the end of the day, I'm a grown man. I make my own decisions, but Conor strung me along. I didn't realize he was such a coked out alcoholic and was never going to actually show up to fight. I regret not moving on sooner like everyone told me, but at the end of the day, I'm an adult. He should at least shit on Conor a little bit. But no, I don't blame Conor. He can do whatever he wants to me.
UFC did this to him. I did all this myself. At any given time, I could have jumped off the train and said, UFC, let me fight someone else. At any given time, I could have said, I am done with this. At any given time, I could have said no to obligations and just changed course.
Facts. And everybody told you to do so. This man right here on this screen messaged me and said, how dare you speak of my illustrious career? He said, we all know I made the right decision. That's what Chandler messaged me directly. In what, April? April, he messaged me that. He woke up thinking about me. He posted an Instagram reel featuring some of my audio and talking shit. Because I should have been his manager. To be honest, I would have navigated his career much better than he did. He's whiteboarding it, with his wife or whatever, leaving her as a single mom for 10 months while he chases a fantasy fight against a guy who's out hanging out with little people, little McNuggets, hanging out with the Mac Daddy. I'm surprised at this point Chandler isn't calling Conor McGregor Mac Daddy, but we'll see what happens. Chandler's just a massive hypocrite, calling out Arman for waiting maybe 6 months for a title shot. Isn't that rich? And just the nonstop cope. And what's crazy and really bothering me is he's saying some of the same things that a lot of fans have been saying for a while. Oh, well, Conor's unreliable. What, you think? Oh, well, Conor's social media. Well, you think? And then to have the audacity to say any other fighter still would have held on. I'm betting on myself. Yeah, he better pray he beats Charles Oliveira. He better pray. But at 40 years old, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.